Thank you for joining us for excerpts from the 49th sitting of the 2009 to 2013 session of the Tobago House of Assembly. Moving the motion this week was Assemblyman Oswald Williams. The motion dealt with the service provided by Caribbean Airlines, which was described as ineffective and causing significant inconvenience, hardship and distress for residents and visitors to Tobago. Mr. Williams also argued that Tobago is a part of Trinidad and Tobago and should therefore be regarded and treated equally to Trinidad, including services provided by state agency Caribbean Airlines.
Tourism is the major plank on which the economy of Tobago sits. And as part owners of Caribbean Airlines Limited, we are entitled to have Caribbean Airlines Limited, the state-owned national carrier, understand the needs of Tobago's tourism and service those needs. Madam Presiding Officer, this implies, among other things, that Caribbean Airlines Limited has a responsibility as a national carrier, as a state enterprise owned by the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, including partially owned by citizens of Trinidad and Tobago resident in Tobago. They have a responsibility to provide connectivity to the markets that are critical to Tobago's tourism needs. Madam Presiding Officer, this is the context in which I want to place today's debate. Having said that, I want to let this Honorable House know, Madam Presiding Officer, that Caribbean Airlines Limited is not delivering to Tobago. Let us just look at some of the issues as it relates to their non-delivery. On the air bridge, Caribbean Airlines have 20 to 22 scheduled daily flights between Trinidad and Tobago, punctuated, of course, by cancellations and consolidations. Their latest effort, Madam Presiding Officer, that is Caribbean Airlines, to appease the residents of Tobago, to appease Tobago in their concerns that the service is not being delivered, that they are required to deliver, was the provision of 2 additional late-night services on the air bridge. According to our observations and the statistics, there has been no discernible growth in passenger movement since February 2012, when that service was introduced. In fact, if we use April 2012 as compared to April 2011 as an example, in April 2012, that's this last April of this year, that is since the service has been introduced, Caribbean Airlines Limited moved 31,523 passengers between Trinidad and Tobago for the month. Compared to the same period last year, April 2011, Caribbean Airlines moved 31,932 passengers between Trinidad and Tobago. So in spite of the addition of the 2 late flights, they moved more than 400 passengers less in April this year than last year.
Assemblyman Williams went on to state the requests made by the Tobago House of Assembly to CAL over the past years.
We have been asking them to fix the air bridge. And that involves, among other things, having a booking system, having a recording system that is able to capture all inquiries for the service between Trinidad and Tobago. This information, of course, is not being captured by Caribbean Airlines as we speak, and of course, it puts them in a position where they are not able to gauge what the real situation is with demand. Related to that, of course, I have been able to observe recently, in recent months, that the Honorable Chief Secretary is himself an economist of note, not like the pygmy economist that I have seen described in another place. Because he has been saying to Caribbean Airlines on more than one occasion, what is required on that air bridge is that we put a supply of service on the air bridge, a supply way in excess of what is being provided now. And therefore, that will give you give us an opportunity, one, to ensure that persons who wish this service is not turned away. It will give us an opportunity to give to those persons who have given up on this service a chance to try to come to Tobago again, or to travel between Trinidad and Tobago again, and so on. In other words, what the Chief Secretary has been doing there is to ask Caribbean Airlines to employ a theory called Say's law that says supply creates its own demand. Believe it or not, it is perhaps the most appropriate requirement in terms of being able to come to terms with what is needed on the air bridge. Caribbean Airlines is not prepared to do that. Of course, with respect to Caribbean Airlines and what we have been asking for, we have been asking also for connectivity within the Caribbean. Connectivity between Tobago and Barbados, connectivity between Tobago and Grenada, and so forth. Not forthcoming. And we have been treated so badly in this regard, Madam Presiding Officer, that last year, as early as March last year, 2011, one of the large tour operators out of Scandinavia had given a proposal to the Tobago House of Assembly indicating that for the winter last year, which was from November to April, so we would have been given anything like 8 months lead, we are going to bring, this is what they said to us, we are going to bring a charter from Scandinavia fortnightly for the winter. That charter is going to Barbados. If you can provide a link between Barbados, a direct link between Barbados and Tobago, we are willing to book 30 of those passengers on that charter from Scandinavia to come to Tobago, spend a week, and come back to Barbados after that, spend the second week, and then get their return flight back to Scandinavia. As soon as we got the information, we approached Caribbean Airlines. And the the record is that those 30 passengers instead went to St. Lucia because we were not able to convince Caribbean Airlines that Tobago deserves their service of connectivity between Barbados and Tobago, not even for our winter season.
Responding on the side of the minority was Assemblyman Wally Kwaku. He argued that a business environment needs to be created in Tobago that would attract airlines from all over the world.
Tobago is rich. While we keep focusing on tourism, we must, no, transportation is for people. The plane is to transport people from point A to point B. And if you don't create the environment for people, and if you don't create the environment for people to come to Tobago, what are they coming for? Create this situation. That is my world. This is the world. I'm a businessman. You know that. You don't go crying for business. You create the environment for business. And this is one of the things that I can tell you that we in Ethiopia would create an environment in Tobago, a business-like environment. Create business people. Create the environment that would make airlines from all over the world just want to come to Tobago. We can do it. We have it, and we can do it. That is what we ought to do, rather than blaming successive government. I am really tired of that. Very, very tired of it. Blaming people and not taking responsibility for our own actions. And this is what this administration continued to do for the last 12 years, and probably looking forward to doing it for the next 4 years. The bottom of the line is that planes fly people, and we must create the environment. We must create the environment such that people would want to come to Tobago. Crying and complaining will not help. And I don't want this administration to continue, of course it will not continue, to train our young people to be dependent. This dependency syndrome. 12 years we're telling our people, look, Trinidad is not doing this, this one is not doing that. And while the cat playing with the fiddle, the dish running away with the spoon. It's time we train our people to be dependent on ourselves. We can do it. So that this talk about Caribbean Airlines, Madam Presiding Officer, and the people in Trinidad not providing whatever it is for us, I don't know. I don't know. We are going down the wrong road. We can ask for it, but at the same time, how is it that we are not allowing our young people to understand that they must think big?
Assemblyman Tracy Davidson Celestine stood in support of the motion. In her presentation, she argued that Mr. Kwaku was not familiar with the operations of the tourism industry, nor the content of the THA Act, which guides the House.
And, I listened to the member for Canaan Bonaccord, and it is clear that in his debate, he is not very familiar with the operations of the tourism industry and also the relationship between transportation and the development of the tourism industry. And also he is not very familiar with the contents of its act, of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, which is the document that guides us here, Madam Presiding Officer. In my research, in preparing for this motion today, I came up with a phrase from Sir Michael Bishop, which has argued that transportation is the background to any sustainable economy because transportation brings people together, it facilitates trade, and more so it facilitates tourism. And when one looks at any research on the relationship between transportation and tourism development, especially in the context of international tourism, Madam Presiding Officer, a high correlation between the two always emerge. And that is because it is widely known and accepted that tourism cannot thrive without travel. And so, in any country that focuses heavily on tourism, one has to look carefully between the relationship, one has to look carefully at the relationship between tourism and the transportation, and more so, one has to look very carefully between the different modes of transportation and the management, as we know that it is one of the most important ingredients of any international tourism system. And that is what the Secretary with responsibilities for tourism and transportation has argued today. And transportation systems of any tourist destination has an impact on the tourism experience, and more so, it explains how and why people travel. It explains how and why tourists in particular travel. And that is why the Secretary of Tourism and Transportation made the point that they have been talking to the management of Caribbean Airlines, they have been talking to the central government with a view to ensuring that they fix the air bridge, and also with a view to ensuring that they have a system that can capture inquiries, because of course they want the information, they want to be able to map the demand, and more so, they want to be able to explain how and why people travel.
The final two contributions to the debate came from Assemblyman Steve Jack and Councillor Dr. Ansam London.
Yes, the airline has had some challenges. It has had some challenges in servicing the domestic transport needs of the island in the past. But within recent time, Madam Presiding Officer, one can safely say that the air bridge has come a very long way. Yeah. It has come a very long way in meeting those demands in the past 24 months. I'm going to go further and quote again, and our Secretary for Tourism, or Present Secretary for Tourism, also indicated that Caribbean Airlines provides 22 daily flights between Trinidad and Tobago. In total, the airline serves 14 markets in the Caribbean, South America, North America, and Europe, and it operates 120 weekly flights. Caribbean Airlines also offer daily jetpack small parcel service throughout the Caribbean and twice weekly cargo service between Trinidad, Barbados, and Miami. In the article headline, Caribbean Airlines defend Tobago service, in countering accusations by members of the Tobago House of Assembly that it has not been supportive and it was not being as cooperative as it should be in assisting Tobago in making its mark or in being able to have a more formidable presence in the international tourism market, CAL stated that Caribbean Airlines in many ways has proven itself as a dedicated partner in support of the development of Tobago for many years.
I'm flabbergasted. Here we are. And perhaps this explains why the leader is again absent. He did not want to witness the dissension in the ranks. Because here is the representative of the United Accord in a rare fit of anger, acknowledging, and I guess with good reason, that he will support the motion. And yet, the member for Goodwood Belgrade sits here, or stands here, with our permission, and reads or presents a speech or a statement that looks very much like it came from the public relations department of the very airline itself. But Mr. Jack, the minority leader, has enough to worry about these days. He will settle the battles within, the continuing battles within his own domain. But as far as the direct issue of the motion, Madam Presiding Officer, raised by the Secretary of don't have to go through the litany of the importance of tourism, the tourism sector, to Tobago as a whole, and to several Caribbean islands. We know of its important contribution, both to gross domestic product and in some instances to gross national product. We know its importance to employment, even though the income effect of tourism is not as large as would be suggested by the employment effect. Several statements have been made over the years about the contribution of tourism to net foreign exchange earnings, to the extent that that's an important indicator. But the point is, when we look at Tobago, regardless of what conclusions you draw, tourism has some relevance, some economic relevance. And therefore, when one of the agents in this activity, in this sector, does not perform as well as that agent should, i.e. Caribbean Airlines, we, on this side of the house, have to stand up and say so, and take the necessary action such that Caribbean Airlines, for which we pay, like everyone else, does the job that it is supposed to do.
Councillor London went on to make comparisons with other airlines around the world that service their countries.
Just as Air Canada services all of Canada, all of Canada, from Newfoundland to British Columbia to up north. You think they make money when they fly to Fonda Bay or to Yellowknife, but they serve their country. And I come here today and hear lectures from somebody who should know better, who used to teach children in school, telling us this kind of story about how airlines can't fly because they can't make money. I am part of this country. I live in Tobago and I demand first-class service, first-class air service. Don't tell me about making money, I will get to that. And you know, they try to create the impression that Tobago is some back of the woods place, that nobody will them. You don't have to send airlines there on a regular basis and comfort them, etc., etc. Qantas was in the news today. Qantas Airlines in Australia. They were in the news today. And part of the first loss they suffered in 17 years was because Qantas found it part of their duty to provide service all over Australia. So Australia is better than me? I am simply saying, Madam Presiding Officer, these are not privately owned airlines. These are airlines owned by all the taxpayers of the country. And then you're going to tell me Caribbean Airlines is going to give me some excuse why they cannot fly to Tobago and provide first-class service here. And boasting about a paltry 22 seats, 22 flights per day. Aero Mexico, same thing, provides service all over Mexico. Air India, even though you have other airlines, Kingfisher and so on, they are required to provide service to the people of India. You go on, Madam Presiding Officer, big country story too. Air France and its subsidiaries, they provide service all over France. So what is wrong? What is, including Guadeloupe and Martinique, including them, and French Guiana, and you are telling me that Air France could make that their effort for their people in Europe and in the hinterland. And when we in Tobago demand of Caribbean Airlines to provide service, somehow we must sit at the back of the bus, or in this case, back of the plane. I am sorry. I am not accepting that as a citizen.
At the end of the debate, the motion was passed in the House. The motion requested that the House mandate the Executive Council to convey its disapproval of the quality of service by Caribbean Airlines Limited to the relevant central government authorities and that the Executive Council urged these authorities to implement as a matter of urgency specific policies and measures to ensure that Caribbean Airlines Limited delivers an improved quality of service to Tobago. You have been watching excerpts from the most recent plenary sitting of the Tobago House of Assembly. I am Avian Parks for the Department of Information.